"Dad, you don't need to come anymore." My son didn't even look at me when he said it. We were standing in his driveway, same house I helped him buy, same driveway where I taught him how to ride a bike. But that day, I was a guest. His stepfather stood behind him, arms crossed, quiet smile, like he had already won. I held a small box in my hands, a birthday gift for my grandson. My son glanced at it, then back at me. "We've got it covered now." Covered. That word stayed with me. I nodded, said nothing, just placed the box on the porch and walked away. Slow steps, steady breath. But inside, something shifted. Not anger, something colder. Because in that moment, I realized something didn't make sense, and they had no idea what I had already seen. If you've ever been pushed aside by your own blood, you'll understand this story. Before we go further, tell me in the comments, have you ever felt replaced in your own family? And if stories like this speak to you, subscribe to the channel, because what happens next might surprise you. And if not, stay with me, because what happened next wasn't loud, but it changed everything. What they didn't know was I had already stepped back long before that day. My name is Richard. I'm 64 years old. I spent 38 years building a construction business from nothing. Early mornings, late nights, missed holidays, missed birthdays, but I made sure my family never missed anything. My son, David, he was my reason. Everything I built was meant for him. When his mother and I divorced, it was quiet, respectful, or so I thought. A year later, she remarried. That's when things started to change. At first, it looked normal. That's what made it dangerous. David stopped calling as often. Then he started canceling visits. Then came the phrases, "We're busy, maybe next week. You wouldn't understand." I told myself it was normal. Kids grow up. But something felt off. Then one day I visited his house unannounced, and that's when I heard it. "Ask your dad," his son said. But David didn't turn to me. He turned to him. Not even a glance in my direction, not even a pause. The stepfather. That was the first time. The first crack. And I remember thinking, when did I stop being his father? But I didn't say anything. Not yet. Because something deeper was happening, and I needed to be sure. That night I sat alone in my living room. No TV, no lights, just silence. I kept replaying that moment, the way David didn't even hesitate, the way that man answered as he belonged there, like I didn't. I looked around my house. Photos on the wall. David as a kid. Baseball games, school awards, fishing trips. There was one photo. He was about 10, holding a wooden birdhouse we built together. He was smiling, looking up at me like I was the only man in the world. I picked up the frame. My hands weren't shaking, but something inside me was. Not anger. It wasn't anger. It was something quieter, something final. Because this wasn't just distance. This was replacement, and that's a different kind of pain, a deeper one. I thought about calling him, demanding answers, but I didn't, because at my age, you learn something important. The louder you react, the fewer people listen. So I sat there, in the dark, and I made a decision. I wouldn't fight for attention. I wouldn't argue. I wouldn't chase. I would step back, completely, and watch, because if something didn't feel right, there was usually a reason, and I intended to find it. So I disappeared. Not completely, just enough. I stopped calling first, stopped offering help, stopped showing up uninvited. At first, nothing happened. Weeks passed, then months. No calls, no messages, not even on my birthday. That told me everything I needed to know, or so it seemed. But then small things started to surface. I still had contacts in the business world, old clients, suppliers. People talk, and sometimes they say things they shouldn't. And one name kept coming up, David's stepfather. Apparently, he had started advising David, helping him expand financially. That didn't sit right with me, because I knew David. He wasn't reckless. He was careful. Always had been. So I started listening more closely. Quietly. No confrontation. Just observation. I learned that David had taken out a loan, then another. New investments, new risks. All were encouraged by that man. And here's what bothered me. David never talked to me about it. Not once. And that's when the question hit me. Was this really about distance or control? I didn't act. Not yet. Because people reveal themselves over time. You just have to be patient enough to let them. And I was. The first crack showed up 6 months later. It was a phone call. Late evening, unknown number. I almost didn't pick up, but something told me to answer. Mr. Richard? A pause. This is the bank regarding David's account. My name was still listed, old cosigner detail, something they hadn't updated. And what I heard next made everything clear. Missed payments, multiple accounts, high-risk investments. I didn't react. I didn't speak for a few seconds. Not because I was surprised, but because I wasn't. I just listened. Calm, quiet. Then I thanked them and hung up. That was the moment. The moment everything connected. The distance, the silence, the sudden replacement. It wasn't emotional. It was strategic. Someone had been guiding him, pushing him. And now, things were starting to break. But here's the question that stayed with me. Did David know, or was he being led? I still didn't step in. Not yet. Because timing matters. And the truth was getting closer to the surface. 2 weeks later, David showed up at my door. First time in almost a year. He looked different. Tired. Tense. Older. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then he said something I didn't expect. Dad, can we talk? He didn't hug me, didn't even step fully inside. I stepped aside. Let him in. No questions, no accusations. Just silence. We sat down, and slowly the truth came out. The investments weren't working, the loans were piling up, and the man he trusted had already pulled his money out. Quietly. Early. Left David exposed. That's when the final piece clicked. This was never about replacing me. It was about removing me, because I would have seen it, stopped it, protected him. David looked at me, for the first time in years, like he used to. Dad, I didn't know what to do. I nodded, still calm, still steady, because anger wouldn't fix this, but clarity could. I stood up, walked to a drawer, and pulled out a folder. Everything I had quietly gathered. Records, contacts, timelines. I placed it in front of him. I didn't stop being your father. I just stopped being visible, I said. Not to scare him, but to show him. He opened it slowly, page by page, and I watched something change in his face. Not fear, not shame. Understanding. That's when I said the one thing that mattered. I didn't step back because I stopped caring. I stepped back so I could see clearly. The room went silent. But this time, it felt different, like something had finally been restored. It took time. Nothing was fixed overnight, but things started to shift. David cut ties with that man, not with anger, just distance, the same way I had. The loans were managed, some losses stayed. Some things don't come back, not money, not time. But the damage stopped, and slowly we rebuilt something. Not the same as before, but real, stronger in a quieter way, more honest, more aware. And that man, he didn't fall because of me. He fell because of his own patterns. That's how it usually works. You don't have to destroy someone.
You just have to let the truth stand. I think back to that day in the driveway. Dad, you don't need to come anymore. He thought I was being pushed out, but I wasn't. I was stepping back to see what couldn't be seen up close. Because sometimes the strongest move isn't to react, it's to wait, to observe, to understand, and then act only when it matters. So let me ask you this. Have you ever been pushed aside only to realize later there was more going on? Share your experience in the comments. I read every one. If this story meant something to you, subscribe and stay with us, because sometimes the real power isn't getting even, it's seeing clearly when no one else does. We choose insight.